Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2. Good. Testing. Testing, testing. Mic test, mic test. 1, 2, 3.
Wireless 2, wireless 2. Little
There's never much to say between the moments of our games and repartee. There's never much to read between the lines of what we need and what we'll take. There's never much to talk about or say aloud, but say it anyway. Of holidays and yesterdays and broken dreams that somehow slipped away. In books and magazines of how to be and what to see while you are being. Before and after photographs teach how to pass from reaching to believing. We live beyond our means on other people's dreams, and that's succeeding. Between the lines of photographs, I've seen the past. It isn't pleasing. So strike another match, we'll have another cup of wine and dance until the evening's dead. Too much song and time. There's never much to talk about or read between the lines of what we dream about when we're apart and no one's looking on to say you're mine. It was a good year then. It was a good year then. We all remember the time you threw the looking glass and seemed a fool or very clever. Don't spoil it all. I can't recall a time when you were struck without an answer. We'll live a quiet, peaceful time between the lines and go together. And I'm striking up the band to play our last hurrah. We'll dance until we've killed another evening off. Don't think of anyone but me. I'll have no lovers on the side. Tonight is all we've ever dreamed about. For once, let's get it right. We'll go down flying in the end. Throw another bottle in between the lines. I go down like a ship of state. Let's be gracious now between the lines.
When I'm feeling down, you never far away, no. Before I make a sound, you know what I might say, and it's always been this way. Between your heart and mine, there's nothing you can do that I don't know, babe. When something's troubling you, I know just where you go and meet you at that place. It's over. Shared it for so long. Shared it for so long. Never ever let another come between your heart and mine. Between your heart and mine. Between your heart and mine. Between your heart and mine.
There's a bird on a wire, sitting up high. A bird on a wire, always searching the sky. Bird on a wire, used to be two. A bird on a wire, but one up and flew away. Up and flew away. There's a bird on a wire, sitting up high. A bird on a wire, always wondering why. Bird on a wire, can't see the ground. A bird on a wire, oh, he can't hear the sound of her song. Now that she is gone. Oh, oh, no song so long. There's a bird on a wire, sitting up high. A bird on a wire, oh, reach for the sky. Bird on a wire, time to move on. A bird on a wire, oh, he's leaving at dawn away. Time to fly away. Time to fly away.
Oh, how sad they sound, the songs the queen must sing of dying, the prisoner upon her throne, the melancholy sighing. If she could see her mirror now, she would be free of those who bow and scrape the ground beneath her feet. Silently she walks among her dying midnight roses, and watches as each moment goes that never really really knows her. And so it seems she doesn't care if she has dreams of no one there within the shadows of her room. But all my frozen words agree and say it's time to call back all the birds I sent to fly behind her castle walls. And I'm weary of the nights I've seen inside these empty halls. Wooden lady, turn and turn among my weary secrets, and way within the hours past another empty pocket. Maybe we found what we have lost when we've unwound so many crossed and tangling misunderstandings. But all my frozen words agree and say it's time to call back all the birds I sent to.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Houston Oasis. My name's Alexis Potaman, and I will be the MC for today. We're really excited to have you all here. I like to start each meeting with a couple of our core values. Today I want to highlight reality is known through reason and be accepting, be accepted. We've got a great lineup for you today. We've got our community moment from Richard Andrews, our main talk from Adam Lee, and our musical guest today is Jess Schneider. So with that, let's go ahead and get this morning started off with a couple of songs from Jess Schneider.
Hey y'all, thanks for having me. I love the new location. We'll go on a little journey here, and we'll start off with just a boy who's questioning where he's at in life and trying to find bigger things. Pack my bags, won't forget my phone. I'm leaving town, don't wanna work here no more. I left a package on the table, and a letter goodbye, I hope to see you later. Got supplies to last the week, but the smell in the air makes my tears taste so sweet. If I've seen down now for a while, it's 'cause I'm running around, not have been so tired. Let me see your true colors. Let me see your heartbeat. Wanna see it shine on you, right on through your skin. It's like a wave that's in the ocean, on these melody seas. Let me see your true colors. They wanna see your true colors. I'm almost there, just south of 5. And when I settle in, we're gonna take a little ride. I might be hungry, but that's okay. I'm feeling full, 'cause I'm here to stay. Let me see your true colors. Let me see your heartbeat. Wanna see it shine on you, right on through your skin. It's everywhere, it's in the air now, and the birds wanna see. Let them see your true colors. They wanna see your true colors. No matter how far I've come, it won't matter if you're even late. If I don't try, I won't know what it means to keep on moving on. Keep on moving on. Let me see your true colors. Let me see your heartbeat. I wanna see it shine on you, right on through your skin. It's everywhere, it's in the air now, and the birds wanna see. Let them see your true colors. They wanna see your true colors. Pack my bags, forget my phone. I'm home again, this time I'll take it slow. Wait a month and then you'll see, as I remind you what it's me. 100 different little ways to wrap your head around. I said, wait a month and then you'll see. In the middle of the night, as I lay down, I wonder why. Is my future looking bright? I'm just trying to live my life, but I doubt I do it right. We go up, down, every town, everybody's coming out. Yeah, we sing songs half-bound, watching that body move around. Just take your time and watch your life, the different strokes and different lights. Every night you take the burn, take it all and twist and turn. And when you walk, you trip and fall. Get back up, it's time to crawl. Don't you ever give on up, it's time to be some more. From the future I see you. Yeah, I'm seeing all your moves, and I'm liking what you do. Can I wait till you see too, when there's nothing left to prove? And I've been looking from afar, knowing one day that you'll be a star. We all have our ups and downs, different smiles and some frowns. A lot of people in their doubts. go up, down, every time, everybody's coming out. Yeah, we sing songs half-bound, watching our body move around. Take your time and watch your life, different strokes and different lights. Every night you take the burn, take it all and twist and turn. And when you walk, you trip and fall, get back up, it's time to crawl. Don't you ever give on, no. It's time to be someone. Everybody's coming out. Yeah, we sing songs half-bound, watching our body move around. Just take your time and watch your life, the different strobes and different lights. Every night you take the burn, take it all and twist and turn. And when you walk, you trip and fall, get back up, it's time to crawl. Don't you ever give on up. It's time to be someone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so some of you may remember pre-pandemic we used to do what's called a community moment. This is a great chance for someone from the community to get up, share a quick 10-minute talk about something that is interesting to them, a book they've read, a thought they've had, something to just share with the community. So now that we have this great space, we're kind of going to start bringing these back. And so this week, our community moment will be given by Richard Andrews. And the only thing I know about it is it's about drugs. So have fun.
Hey folks, so hopefully this will be somewhat interesting. And let's see, I guess it's already up there, isn't it, Abhishek? So, okay, so I saw a comment, you know, because a lot of times we see stuff on the internet that's just a statement by somebody and you don't know if it's true or not. So somebody said, oh, the lethal dose of psilocybin mushrooms is 5 kilos. That sounded a bit high to me. So I decided to dive into that. Okay, by the way, I'm Richard Andrews. I'm a family doctor and an addiction doctor, and so this is of interest to me. So next slide. And I have no disclosures. Oh, are you able to? Okay, well, anyway, so I have no disclosures, no conflicts of interest, at least not about this. And disclaimers, this is not medical advice, okay? And this is certainly not lifestyle advice. I did not tell you to go out and take drugs. If you do that, that's your business. It's just discussing interesting stuff, at least interesting to me. And unfortunately for you, you have to listen to it for 10 minutes. So are we able to advance? Okay, yeah. Oh, there you go. So in healthcare, and maybe even in life itself, it's useful to know the toxicity of different things, right? And then, is it even important that we find out what the toxicity of psilocybin mushrooms is? Is there a therapeutic benefit to humans? And I know that probably nearly all of you have read stuff here and there, especially lately, about the possible or actual benefit of psilocybin in treatment for certain things. And some of the benefits that have been suggested and are still being evaluated by double-blind controlled studies and that sort of thing, although it's hard to blind somebody to the fact that they're hallucinating, but nevertheless, it can be used in different doses. What is the right dose? You know, that's the kind of thing that needs to be, you know, you don't just take a random amount of mushrooms and suddenly everything's better, right? Although it might be for a couple of hours. But so it's been looked at for depression treatment, especially otherwise treatment-resistant depression, for PTSD, which is a huge issue. I work in a methadone clinic, or a couple different methadone clinics, and that seems to be most of what my patients have, leading to their current situation is PTSD, some kind of trauma, either in childhood or adulthood or both. Anxiety and addiction treatment itself, treatment for other addictions. How do we study toxicity? Well, it's often in mice, and I realize there's an ethical question there, and I think that's an important discussion to have, and maybe we could set that up at some point, a discussion within the community, a respectful, nice discussion about, because I'm sure people have strong feelings one way or the other. Should we ever test toxicity on animals to see what the possible effect on humans might be? I think that's a discussion worth having. Next slide. And, well, this is a bit redundant here. I already talked about the different things. So I saw an interesting human study, and I don't think they had any trouble finding people who would agree to do this, but they studied different amounts of psilocin. Psilocin is basically when you eat mushrooms, psilocybin is the main active hallucinogenic ingredient, and that gets metabolized into psilocin, the word that you see here. You can consider that to be essentially equivalent to psilocybin itself. So they determined that taking 25 milligrams of psilocin is definitely safe. So just so you can keep that in mind, that's a safe dose to take. Again, I'm not telling you to go out and take 25 milligrams of psilocin, just telling you about the science. And then when you take, a bunch of mushrooms, what percent of that is the active ingredient? Well, about 1%. Now, there are different strains of psilocybin mushroom, of course, or cultivars or whatever. What's the right word, Ted? So, and some of them have a higher percentage, but even the highest one is like less than 2% of the weight of the mushroom is this active ingredient. So that gives us an idea. And then LD50, for those of you not familiar with that, LD50 is a standardized way of determining how toxic something is. And that is what's the amount of that substance, in this case psilocin, that will kill 50%, that will consistently kill 50% of the mice that it's given to. And that gives us an idea what the toxicity is. And even though generally we don't do those experiments in humans, half of you may die in this experiment, but that, and of course mice and humans are not exactly the same thing, but there are a lot of overlaps. We do have a very similar biology, although not identical. So they determined in a study that 293 milligrams per kilogram of the individual is an LD50. It'll consistently kill half of the mice in the study. And then converting that to a 70 kilogram adult like myself, that would be 20 grams of pure psilocin would kill 50%. Now, even if you're killing 1% of the people taking it, that's still a lot, right? So anyway, but that gives us an approximate measure. And then I did a calculation, 1% of the weight of the mushroom is psilocin times 3 million milligrams, which is 3 kilos, comes out to 30 grams of psilocin, more than the amount that killed 50% of the mice. And so, yes, taking 3 kilos, surprise, surprise, would probably kill you. And even taking 20 or 10 milligrams, kilos would probably kill you. So don't do that. Okay, so here's a quiz, first quiz, there's only going to be 2 quizzes. So the first quiz is, what's the world's most potent natural hallucinogen? We're not talking about LSD or other synthetics. Any ideas? Okay, hint, here, you can see the hints on the screen in front of you. Oh, no, you can't. So next slide, sorry. Next slide. Oh, there you go. Okay, so Magic Mint is one of the most common street names for it. The plant actually, oh yeah, Joe? No, you're striking out so far. It's grown in the highlands of Oaxaca. Mexico, by the way, is the country that has the largest variety of hallucinogenic plants. The leaves of this particular plant, now when they're used by the, little old ladies and little old men that, literally take a few leaves off the plant, chew them, go sit under a tree, it's part of their religious ceremonies and stuff. Even though it's the most potent natural hallucinogenic plant, when you do it that way, you're getting a tiny amount, right? So, and so it ends up being safe when it's done that way and stuff. It's actually still legal in some states simply because the legislature hasn't gotten around to it. Okay, let's see, next slide. It's called, because Ginger wants to know, salvia. And then the drug itself, that's the plant, the drug itself is called salvinorin A. Okay, diseases of despair. So maybe you've heard that term. We're going to hear more about it. There are certain conditions, specifically drug overdoses, alcohol-related disorders, and suicides or suicide attempts. Those seem to be correlated with things like economic hopelessness. COVID seems to have been a factor, post-COVID, that sort of thing. And in 2022, there were roughly 50,000 suicides, also the year before, an all-time high. You have to go all the way back to the beginning of World War II to see similar numbers, but it matches that previous high. And it was highest in the elderly and then in middle-aged folks. And I see this kind of hopelessness in the methadone clinic there. Of course, by the time people get to a methadone clinic, they're at rock bottom. And in 2023, some of you may have heard about this, the loneliness epidemic. Don't worry, it gets better. Our epidemic of loneliness, but this looks like a fascinating report, but it talks about, and here's the optimistic side, talks about not just the problem, but the healing effects of connection and community like this. So we're happy to have you here. So, and now on a lighter note, our second quiz today is about Coca-Cola. And Joe Boy, what's the prize for the winner of today's contest? No? Or Ginger, what's the prize? For the winner of the contest. Never mind. Okay. It was first sold in what year, Coca-Cola?
1889.
Wow, excellent. All right, very good. And then it contained, how much cocaine? First time Coca-Cola was sold, yeah. 1889 was his guess, which is very, very close. That was very close. So how much cocaine was in that? 1%. Okay, next slide, please. 4.5 milligrams of cocaine, or Coke, which is why it's called Coca-Cola, of course, was in that. And it was 1886. Of course, it also had sugar and caffeine. A few years later, they had to take the cocaine out. But it's still sufficiently addictive with the sugar and the caffeine and stuff like that. Sorry? Addiction in a can, that's right. And so, okay, became popular. Next slide. And I'm probably going to run over 10 minutes. Somebody stop me. But anyway, some of you everyone's heard of cannabis. Has everyone heard of the endocannabinoid system of the body? There are a number of drugs, opiates, nicotine, cannabis, and others, that don't just have an effect on the body for random reasons. They have an effect on the body and the brain because they latch onto receptors and neurotransmitter systems, neurological systems that already exist because nature, evolution, concluded a long time ago that these were useful, right? They had a utility, and then it can get hijacked by putting in external substances and having certain effects. But this endocannabinoid system, discovered roughly 30 years ago, there's a lot more work being done on it. It has a huge impact on a whole bunch of systems in the body, and I think as we learn more about that, there's going to be some therapeutic ramifications. Next slide, please. So, for example, cannabis and and one of the common side effects, I'm sure nobody in here has ever used cannabis, but say, for example, if you had read about it or you knew somebody who had used it, right? So one of the side effects is, loss of short-term memory, which, usually either a harmless thing or could be a bad thing in some cases. But for somebody with PTSD who is having unpleasant, intrusive memories, that could be a therapeutic thing, right? Especially when it's under guided therapy and that kind of stuff. And that's one of the things that we may be able to use the way the system is set up, this endocannabinoid system. Next. Prescription opioids and overdoses. Now we know that some of the drug companies in particular, would dump huge amounts of OxyContin into these small West Virginia towns, a lot more than they could possibly use and stuff like that. So there was certainly some bad behavior there, and then we had, and that, I wouldn't say it triggered the so-called opioid crisis, but it certainly exacerbated it and put fuel on the fire. But from 2011 to 2019, opioid prescriptions actually dropped precipitously, and yet overdose deaths continued to climb, and that was when synthetic fentanyl was coming on the market. Well, fentanyl is always synthetic, but fentanyl came on the market. Initially, perhaps by diversion of prescriptions, but now it's 99% from people making it in their garage because it's not hard to make and stuff. And now we're seeing that it's a combination frequently of fentanyl plus stimulants, cocaine, methamphetamine, and that's where we're seeing the overdose deaths now primarily. And in some parts of the country, fentanyl never was the primary thing. Like Southwest and Texas, it was often stimulants that were the driver of many of the deaths. Okay, next slide. I'm almost done because I'm sure I'm out of time. Now, alcohol, I find this interesting. Alcohol, when it goes into the brain, it does many different things, of course, but one of the first things it does, endorphins are our, you've heard of this, it's our internal opioid, right? Our own body makes opioids, and that's why external opioids have an effect, is because they're linking into our own pain control systems and whatnot. But one of the first things alcohol does when it gets into the brain is it triggers release of our own internal opioids, and then from there, that triggers the release of dopamine, and that lasts longer than the opioids do. And I just found that intriguing. You might have people, discussing over a beer or a glass of wine how bad it is that these people are taking opioids, not knowing that the buzz they're feeling is actually from their own internal opioids. I just found that ironic. Okay, I think that's all I have. Yeah, that's it. And I will share these slides with anybody who wants them, and you can just come up to me and I'll send them to you. Thank you.
All right, I'm always trying to prevent the shadow just by walking straight in front of it. So all right, so we are going to go ahead and go straight into our talk, and then we'll do a coffee break before Q&A. So our talk today is Adam Lee. He is an atheist author and speaker from New York City. His previous published books include Daylight Atheism and most recently, Commonwealth, a Novel of Utopia. His talk is entitled The World We Dream About and the One We Live in which he explains that it's essential to hold a rational optimism because hope is the engine that powers change for the better. So please help me welcome to the screen, Adam Lee.
And thank you to everyone from Houston Oasis for inviting me. Let me share my screen. So, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but sometimes it's necessary. Sorry, next slide, there we go. Destructive climate change is already happening, and the pace is accelerating. 2023 was the hottest summer ever recorded, with record-breaking temperatures throughout July and August. Since you're living in Texas, I probably don't need to tell you about the long stretches of extreme heat that bake the South. In Arizona, it was reported it got so hot that people who fell down suffered severe burns just from coming in contact with the ground. In Florida, offshore sensors recorded ocean water temperatures topping 100 degrees, so hot that it caused coral reefs to bleach and die. Everywhere in the world, glaciers are retreating and melting. Here where I live in New York, we spent several days under ashy gray skies as massive Canadian wildfires sent up plumes of smoke that choked out the sun. It was an eerie sight, darkness at midday, with only a coppery red glimmer of sun peeking through the haze. It's the kind of portent that would have made ancient people terrified of the god's anger. Warming oceans also make hurricanes more powerful, flooding the coasts. In the near future, mega droughts and heat waves might make whole areas of the world uninhabitable. Of course, climate change isn't the only problem that the US is facing. Angry, unstable people can freely buy assault weapons and massacre innocent strangers, while our government offers nothing but thoughts and prayers. Anti-vaccine rhetoric spreads like wildfire, and people who believe these conspiracy theories continue to sicken and die needlessly from preventable disease. It's not only COVID that's taking a toll. Thanks to the anti-vaxxers, even long-suppressed diseases like polio and measles are making a comeback. Again, a problem you probably have experience with in Texas. Abortion bans are turning red states into a vision of Margaret Atwood's Gilead, where women's bodies are deemed property of the state and they're forced to bear children against their will. Cruel laws forbid doctors from intervening, even to save women's lives from pregnancies that could kill them. Some of these states are even trying to make it a crime for women to travel out of the state to get an abortion where it is legal. Inequality is sky high. Millions of families go hungry, skip medical care, and stagger under huge burdens of debt. Meanwhile, the rich keep getting richer, and narcissistic billionaires throw away billions of dollars on petty pursuits, like buying a popular social media site seemingly just to wreck it. The Christian nationalist project has been thwarted for the moment, but they're plotting a comeback in 2024. Worse, America's archaic and broken system of government gives them more of a chance than they should have. Voter suppression, gerrymandering, a malapportioned Senate, and a conservative majority Supreme Court allow them to win, even with only a minority of the vote. Democracy is everywhere under threat from thuggish strongman candidates and ethno-nationalist political parties. Donald Trump is just the American face of this resurgent worldwide fascist movement. If all this makes you feel a little pessimistic, well, no one could blame you. There's no shortage of reasons to be depressed. But like I said, it's necessary. We have no hope of surviving as a civilization if we're in denial about the dangers we face. We have to look our problems squarely in the eye to have even a hope of overcoming them. And yes, I said hope. Hope is more and not less important in dire times. Hope doesn't have to be carefree or born of ignorance. Hope isn't a fluffy cloud that lifts you up above the chaos of the world. Hope is a life preserver you cling to when you're adrift in stormy seas. The author Alexandra Rowland coined the word hope punk for the literary genre that tells stories of people persevering in the face of darkness and turmoil. As Rowland put it, hope punk says that kindness and softness don't equal weakness, and that in this world of brutal cynicism and nihilism, being kind is a political act, an act of rebellion. To be clear, hope isn't a religious faith that things will turn out for the best no matter what. With apologies to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the universe does not have a moral arc. There are no chosen ones that will appear, as prophecy foretells, to reign wisely. No messiahs will descend from the clouds to institute peaceful kingdoms on earth. No gods will reward the good people and sentence the evildoers to their deserved punishment. Justice is a human concept made for humans by humans. It's not an intrinsic part of the natural order. As the author Terry Pratchett said, there's no justice, there's just us. But instead, I want to offer an empirically grounded optimism. There are real reasons for believing that the world can get better and is getting better. Of course, nothing in the future is guaranteed. We might still fail. But I want to argue contrary to narratives of inevitable doom and gloom, that we still have a good chance of creating the utopian future we've always dreamed of, despite the dangers that beset us. And the first reason for believing this that I want to offer is something that's been variously called the expanding circle or the escalator of reason. For most of history, people were accustomed to seeing their group or their tribe or their race as the only real humans, or at least the only ones deserving of rights. As long as most people believed this, humanity was split into isolated silos. We were xenophobic, suspicious, fearful of outsiders, readily swayed into believing bigoted lies. But once you make the mental leap to recognize that people who aren't like you are still people, a transformation occurs. Empathy gives rise to an expanding circle of fair treatment. Each time we correct a previously overlooked injustice, it sets a precedent which makes it that much easier to recognize the next one. A surprising but true historical example is the fact that anti-child abuse laws originally took their inspiration from anti-animal cruelty laws. And this means that moral progress has a tendency to accelerate over time. In 1967, in the case of Loving versus Virginia, the Supreme Court struck down laws that outlawed interracial marriage. Even so, attitudes didn't change overnight, and most people were still opposed to it. It was only in 1997, yes, 1997, that a majority of Americans said they approved of interracial marriage. But same-sex marriage traveled the same journey much faster. From 1996, when pollsters first started asking about it, it only took until 2013. Nowadays, it's at 70% support, a record high. This is a sea change in popular opinion, one that took place much faster than previous transformations. And more change is on the horizon. Transgender people are the religious rights targets du jour, but a poll this year, by Fox News no less, finds that they haven't convinced the rest of society that transgender people are dangerous. In this Fox poll, 86% of respondents said that, quote, political attacks on families with transgender children are a problem. 86%. That doesn't sound like a strategy that's a political winner, at least not outside their own narrow and intolerant base. And it suggests that another revolution of rights and tolerance may be on the horizon. The second reason that I want to discuss is the plummeting price of renewable energy. This is one of the most important changes taking place in our lifetime, but it's often overlooked because it doesn't make for sexy, exciting headlines. However, the consequences are enormous. The market price of green energy has dropped so rapidly over the past decade that right now, almost everywhere in the world, it's cheaper to build new sun and wind power than it is to operate existing fossil fuel power. Let me repeat that. It's now cheaper to build brand new solar and wind power plants from scratch than it is to keep running the coal and gas plants that have already been built. And in accordance with that economic logic, green energy is rapidly displacing fossil fuels. This is sometimes called the S-curve, the explosive rise of a revolutionary new technology to prominence, like radio, like television, like the internet, like smartphones. The best estimates are that US carbon emissions peaked in 2005 and have already fallen almost 20% since then. Cheap green energy accelerates the electrification of everything, driving the replacement of gasoline cars with electric cars and gas boilers with electric heat pumps. The green transition also cuts off the lifeblood of warmongering petro-dictators like Vladimir Putin or journalist-murdering Saudi Arabian theocrats. Putin launched a war against Ukraine on the assumption that Europeans wouldn't protest because they were hooked on Russian gas. Instead, the free world has united against him, arming Ukrainians in defense of their own freedom, and the war has turbocharged Europe's green transition. And finally, all these developments came before the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, far and away the biggest and most ambitious measure the US has ever passed to fight climate change. If you haven't heard of this law, you should look it up. Both Bill Clinton and Barack Obama tried to pass climate change legislation, and both of them were blocked by the Senate. But Joe Biden got it done. He broke a 3-decade logjam with the narrowest possible majority in the Senate, and even more impressive, with the swing vote being Joe Manchin, the ultra-conservative Democratic senator from coal-loving West Virginia. The fact that they achieved this is a triumph of historic proportions. The Inflation Reduction Act creates tax credits for solar panels, wind turbines, heat pumps, and electric vehicles. It sets a fee for methane, one of the most potent greenhouse gases. It funds atmospheric carbon capture, clean hydrogen, reforestation, coastal protection, and environmental justice for low-income communities. All told, it invests $380 billion in the future. As I said, it's far and away the biggest and most ambitious project the US has ever conceived of to fight climate change. Experts estimate that it will reduce carbon emissions by an additional billion tons by 2030. That would be 40% below their 2005 high, and it's within striking distance of our Paris Agreement pledge. Thirdly, I want to talk about the decline of religion. This is another of those huge stories that doesn't tend to get the media attention it should, because it doesn't come in big, dramatic, attention-grabbing changes. It's a statistical pattern, one that comes from many individual data points taken together. It's easy to miss if you only look at the individual stories and you don't zoom out to look at the bigger picture. But if you do pay attention to this trend, you'll realize that the future is going to be very different from the present. Since 2021, for the first time ever, a majority of Americans don't belong to any house of worship. Americans who say their religion is none are now as numerous as evangelical Christians or Roman Catholics. Millennials, like me, were the least religious generation in American history, until our successors, Gen Z, broke that record and set a new one of their own. 35% of Gen Z identifies as atheist, agnostic, or non-religious. Among Americans ages 18 to 29, only 31% say they believe in God as described by the Bible, and only 21% say they go to church, even weekly. All across the US, more churches are closing than opening, and the pace of closures is accelerating. The Roman Catholic Church and the Southern Baptist Convention, the two largest Christian denominations in the country, are hemorrhaging members. Some smaller denominations, like the Anglicans, are facing outright extinction. White evangelicals, who've been the backbone of the Republican Party for decades, are dwindling into political irrelevance. Religion, for the most part, is a force for conservatism. Although there are religious believers across the political spectrum, in general, the more often people go to church, the more likely they are to vote for conservative parties and politicians. That's why the rise of the non-religious is a hopeful sign for political progress. In states where non-religious voters are most numerous, especially New England and the Pacific Northwest, there's overwhelming popular support for progressive policies like comprehensive sex ed, LGBTQ rights, cannabis decriminalization, or outright legalization. The growing power of the secular vote, according to many data scientists, may well be the reason why Trump lost the election in 2020. Now, a change this big and this widespread is unlikely to have just one cause. There may be reasons that are specific to some denominations, like the exposure of the horrendous child abuse by Catholic priests and the decades of cover-up by the bishops. However, there are also bigger trends that are affecting many religions. One of them is better education and more access to information. Surveys consistently find that higher levels of education correlate with reduced religious belief. And humanity now is more educated and more intelligent than it's ever been. And I'm not saying this is because religion is stupid per se. Rather, I think it's a matter of broadened perspective. When your culture's beliefs are the only ones you know about, they just blend into your general knowledge of the world, and it's natural for them to go unquestioned. But when you know more, you can see those beliefs for what they are, one brushstroke in the palette of human creativity. And that makes it much harder to take them literally. It's easier to see that every religion is a product of its place and its time, and to notice that people of the past were just as passionately devoted to faiths that we now regard as mythology. Widespread internet access has assisted in this by opening up the spigot of information. Whereas believers of the past might have gone their whole lives without ever encountering a different perspective, the internet has put the best atheist arguments from all of history at people's fingertips in a way that's almost impossible to censor. There's also the issue of political polarization. Starting in the civil rights era, religious conservatives schemed to blast a gap in the constitutional wall of separation between church and state. They made abortion, gay rights, and creationism, among others, into wedge issues to energize their flocks to vote and attempt to ensure their own political dominion. But I think they undermined themselves by tying church membership so tightly to a particular political platform. They proclaimed that if you don't believe in preemptive war, intolerance of gay and trans people, lower taxes for the rich, and building a border wall to keep out immigrants, then you can't be a Christian. Liberals and moderates heard that message loud and clear and started heading for the doors. That exodus is still playing out. There's also less need for coping mechanisms. Although it's true that enormous inequality persists in the world, an overlooked trend of the last few decades is the global decrease in poverty, along with decreases in war deaths, child mortality, and other historical evils. This is easy to miss if you only look at the daily headlines, because bad things are inherently more noteworthy than good things. Disaster and spectacle rivet our attention, but peace and prosperity are boring, and hence go unreported. This means that the news will always be slanted toward covering rare, attention-grabbing catastrophes, rather than the slow and subtle background trend of progress, even though the latter is just as real as the former and arguably more important. As the world becomes more peaceful and more stable, this is weakening religion, which historically offered comfort in a chaotic world. When ordinary people's lives are miserable, the churches have taught that if they hold on to faith, God will reward their sacrifices in the afterlife. That's an appealing proposition to people who have no other source of hope. But when their lives in this world are better and happier, people feel less need for that illusion of consolation. And what this means for us is that the religious rights culture war, the abortion bans, book bans, anti-gay, anti-trans laws, all the intolerant and hateful rhetoric, the violent threats and harassment, even the attempts to overturn elections, all of this is a rearguard action. The fundamentalists are old and getting older, and their kids and their grandkids reject their antiquated beliefs. Each new generation is more secular than its predecessors. That's why the religious right wants to seize power through undemocratic means, because they're running out of time, and they know democratic means won't suffice anymore. It's a sign that they know they're losing. As I like to put it, they're a doomsday cult whose doomsday beliefs are true. That's what fuels their rage and their desperation. It's a spiteful tantrum, lashing out against a future that doesn't include them. It's easy to be swept up in outrage when we read headlines about their latest outlandishly cruel stunts, and we still need to work to oppose those whenever and wherever we can. But we should keep this bigger picture in mind. The religious right is still a threat, and they can still do enormous harm to vulnerable people. but their time is running out. To win the culture war, all we have to do is hold them off. The more time passes, the closer we get to a brighter, more secular future. One of my favorite Broadway musicals is called Hadestown. It's a modern retelling of the ancient Greek tragedy of Orpheus and Eurydice. You might know the story. Orpheus is the greatest musician who's ever lived, able to calm savage animals and make flowers bloom with the power of his music. When his wife Eurydice died in a tragic accident, Orpheus travels to the underworld to try to get her back. With his music, he charms Hades, the god of the dead, and convinces him to let her return to the land of the living with him. But Hades has just one condition. Orpheus has to walk all the way back to the overworld without ever turning around to see if she's following him. You can guess whether he's able to resist that temptation. In one scene from the musical, Orpheus offers up this toast: "To the world we dream about and the one we live in now." To me, that line really sums up the dichotomy we're facing. If the world offered only reasons for hope, we could be Panglossian optimists, living lives of blissful certainty that everything will turn out for the best. If the world offered us only reasons for despair, we could be cynical pessimists, predicting doom and deriving some satisfaction from the knowledge that at least we saw it coming before everyone else did. But the world doesn't make it that easy for us. It offers both hope and despair in equal measure. Sometimes that better world that we dream about feels so close that it seems you can almost reach out and touch it. Other times, the gap between hope and reality widens to what seems like an uncrossable chasm. Hope is a double-edged sword, and I acknowledge it can be painful to hope. It feels like being naked, like being vulnerable, compared to hiding yourself under a crusty armor of cynicism that nothing can pierce, because that way you can never be disappointed. But the downside of cynicism is that it's self-reinforcing. It discourages you from trying, because the belief that you can't make a difference is built in. If you hold to hope and keep working for the better world you believe in, you might still fail, but at least you won't have caused your own defeat. To me, that's a chance worth taking. My longtime friend and correspondent, Jim Haught, an elder statesman of the free thought movement who died this year at the age of 91, was very familiar with this dichotomy. Jim was from West Virginia. He was a religion reporter with decades of experience under his belt. He wrote about what he called the yearly torment of living in a red state, whose government seemingly tried to outdo itself each year in finding new and creative ways to harm their citizens and to roll their rights back. But did he wallow in cynicism? No. On the contrary, Jim was an optimist. He wrote in glowing terms about the enormous social and moral progress that he witnessed over his long life. As he said, "Looking back over 9 decades, I'm proud and pleased because secular humanism, the progressive struggle to make life better for everyone, won hundreds of victories during my time. When I came of age in the 1950s, fundamentalist taboos ruled America. Gay sex was a felony. It was a crime for stores to open on the Sabbath. Black people were confined to ghettos, not allowed into whites-only restaurants, hotels, clubs, pools, schools, careers, or neighborhoods. Interracial marriage was illegal. Schools had government-mandated prayers, and biology classes didn't mention evolution. Birth control was illegal in some states. Unwed couples couldn't share a bedroom. Now, all those born-again strictures have been wiped out, one after another. Human rights and personal freedoms snowballed. Society has changed so radically that it's hard to remember the old thou shalt nots. The marvelous rise of secular humanism in a single lifetime, greatly improving life for all, paints a much brighter hope for humanity. Let's keep striving for more advances." Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we are going to have some Q&A, but we are going to take a quick coffee break, about 10 minutes, so y'all can refresh your coffee, stretch your legs, meet someone new. Will made a joke about introverts last week. I'm also an introvert, so I know how it's awkward to go up to someone and try to make chit chat when you have no idea what's about to happen. So find an extrovert if that's you. And before our coffee break, we are going to have a quick announcement by Jennifer Payton.
Hey guys, I'm your friendly greeter outside. I just have a couple of ideas as a way we can kind of get the word out about our group. Some of you have gotten these nice little name tags. I'm selling these for $7 for Oasis. Keep them in your car. If you're bold like I am, I actually wore it to another meeting where I just wanted to have a name tag. And you just have to be prepared to ask questions when somebody inevitably says, "What is Houston Oasis?" And then I tell them, and I reach into my wallet and I pull out one of the little business cards that I have out front there. So if you want to grab some little business cards and kind of spread the word about Oasis, it just basically send them to the web address, to our website. It doesn't have the Montrose Center or anything like that, but that way people don't have to remember, they write it down or whatever, it's just right there. So just a couple little ideas to try and get the word out about Oasis. Word of mouth is really important, and if it's somebody that you know from another group, they're more likely to kind of like be interested if it's somebody that they know that's recommending it. So anyway, thank you all very much.
Thanks, Jennifer. All right. Be free for about 10 minutes.
Fly behind her castle walls, and I'm weary of the nights I've seen in Sutton's dear.
Oh, they say some people long ago were searching for a different tune, one that they could prove was unbroken. They heard the breeze in the trees singing weird melodies, and they made that the start of the blues.
And from the jail came away all down-hearted friends, and they played them as part of the blues.
From a whippoorwill way up on a hill, they took a new
Pushed it through a horn until it was worn into a new note.
then they rehearsed it.
They rehearsed it.
Then they set out that new
It's a little weird because I have a tendency to not be on time, and so I'm actually sticking to the schedule today. Yeah, so we'll do a song and then Q&A. All right, so we'll do one song, and then we'll do our kickoff with our Q&A.
A stormy coast, the flags were seen with ripples. We found out they were in too deep. The sun was gone, the clouds were dark as nightmares, and endless soul is my family. 1,000 miles of Texas, 1,000 miles or more. Who's picking up the pieces? Yeah, they can't be the only ones. They're far away from their sweet life, but they dream about what was. They're drowning down in Texas, far from who they love. From the storm, I know that nothing lasts forever. When will it end? We could only think. My daddy said he would be alright, but when I walked that night, I found out he was not okay. Was 1,000 miles of Texas, 1,000 miles alone. Who's picking up the pieces? Yeah, they can't be the only ones. They're far away from their sweet life, but they dream about what was. They're drowning out in Texas. We must tell them, don't give up. 1,000 miles, 1,000 miles, 1,000 miles and more. 1,000 miles, 1,000 miles, 1,000 miles and more.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm back here. Sorry. All right, so now we're going to take a few minutes for Q&A. So if you have a question about the talk, and please make sure it's a question and not a comment or a 5-minute long soliloquy. First one's back here.
This has to be a question. So how do you measure what you're calling stability in the world? And therefore, how do you determine and conclude that the world is becoming more stable? I happen to disagree with you strongly.
Okay, good question. All right, just go. So there are some books on this topic I'd recommend. One is called The Better Angels of Our Nature by Steven Pinker. Another one is called Factfulness by Hans Rosling. And they talk about the evidence we have that the world is actually becoming more stable. That's not a single number you can measure. It's a digest of many different statistics on things like number of war deaths, number of military coups, number of refugees. And the trend lines on all these factors and many others like them have been going down for decades. Of course, this is not guaranteed that this is not going to reverse, especially with climate change, the war in Ukraine, the COVID pandemic. All these things have produced short-term upsurges in the number of social ills like preventable deaths and refugees. But the long-term trends at the moment are downward.
Okay, question over here.
Can you repeat the books that you just recommended?
Yes, The Better Angels of Our Nature by Steven Pinker, and another one called Factfulness by Hans Rosling, Rosling.
All right, we've got a question over here.
That was a really great talk. Hades sounds also one of my favorite musicals ever. What would you be, not necessarily agree, but what would you say that secular groups can do to kind of counter the harm of the religious right? Especially, I don't know if you're familiar with the whole Project 2025 thing. What do you think is a secular alternative to do for that from like an organizing perspective?
Well, it's a tough one because secular groups don't really have, the advertising budgets, the reach, the political sway that a lot of megachurches do. So it's hard for us to meet them pound for pound, I guess I would say. I think the bigger contribution that secular groups make is in having an influence on the wider culture, just by showing people by our own example that atheists exist, that we are good people, that you don't have to be religious to be happy or to be moral or to lead a good life. I think that will do more good in influencing the wider culture than like direct political activism. Although I have also read that atheists are actually the most likely group to engage in political activism, things like going to protest marches, writing letters to politicians, calling elected officials. And I think these things feel small individually in comparison to the scope of the problem, but they do make a difference.
Good morning. I happen to be going to New York City. I will be going to New York City for Halloween weekend. I'm so looking forward to it. I love the East Coast. Okay, I just want to get your thoughts on something. There's a lot of polling when it comes to, I guess as a progressive, there's social issues concerning LGBTQ rights, abortion rights, trans rights, and then there's flat out economic kitchen table issues such as having a good paying job, health care, retirement security, be able to go to college without going to huge massive amounts of debt. And polling on those issues such as taking on the pharmaceutical companies, taking on Wall Street firms, making sure workers have a union, those and support for Social Security and Medicare for all tend to poll in the stratosphere, including many working class people who are socially conservative who I know have probably viewpoints of social issues that are not the most progressive. Do you think, and also I remember during the Trump presidency, I had a lot of conversations with Trump voters who said good things about Bernie Sanders. Do you think those two things, economic, populist kitchen table issues, is something for us to work with to break through the red-blue divide in America? What are your thoughts on that?
I think this is a tough one because, like you said, the opinion polls consistently show that even conservative voters are on our side on these issues. So it seems like theoretically it should work. But the problem that seems like we consistently encounter is that people, even Republicans who say they are in favor of an expanded social safety net or higher taxes on the rich, don't vote that way. And it seems like the economic issues that should, in theory, make a difference in their lives, that just doesn't motivate them the way you would think. You know, for example, Obamacare was a huge boon to many rural red voting areas that previously had much reduced access to medical care. But it certainly doesn't seem like that made conservatives more kindly disposed toward Obama. And in many places, they rejected even free Medicare expansion paid for by the federal government, in a way that's causing their own hospitals to close. There's a book I'd recommend about this issue I thought really changed my thinking. It's called Dying of Whiteness. And what it shows is how conservative voters will often reject policies that would directly benefit them personally just to maintain, I guess, what you would call like the theoretical position in a social hierarchy, that they feel as long as they're doing better in some sense than people they perceive as beneath them, such as immigrants, then they don't seem to mind even when their own lives are going terribly. So it's a tough one. I don't have like a solid answer for that.
All right, we've got a question over here.
On the politics, do you think there is a danger in that if you openly, as an atheist, as an organized atheist, try to go against the right, that it will do more damage rather than just trying to argue for political decisions to be made strictly on a factual basis? If we organize as atheists politically, we might actually be hurting ourselves.
Just in terms of producing a backlash?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say that this is not ground I would concede to them, because I think the religious right take so much of their strength from the notion that being religious is the only way you can possibly be moral. And there are people who believe that who aren't necessarily conservative voters, but they still believe that people who claim their beliefs and their morals come from God or the Bible, that has to be respected or given due heed in some way. And I think it actually matters more when atheists confront them on this philosophical ground, to say that, no, you don't actually need to be religious to be a good person, and that atheists can be as good and as moral and as happy as religious people. I think that takes away a great deal of their power. But I think what really motivates them is this idea that being religious is the only way to be moral, so that even people who wouldn't necessarily agree with all their beliefs feel more sympathetically disposed toward them. I think this is something we should not allow to go unchallenged. And I think, again, the statistics show that this is working as a strategy because of the skyrocketing numbers of non-religious voters in younger generations.
Thank you so much. All right, that was a great talk, and thank you so much for, I'm looking at the screen when you're really over there. But thank you so much, that was a great talk, and I agree with your optimism and hope for the best. All right, so before we have our final song, I do want to have a couple of announcements on the September 30th. We have Bar Night coming up. October 21st, we're going to be at the Woodlands Pride Festival. And then on October 22nd, Sunday, October 22nd, both of these rooms are booked up. So keep an eye out in the emails or on Facebook to see what we're doing. I think we're leaning towards a picnic in the park. So keep an eye out for that. And then let's go ahead and have our final song.
Thank you guys once again for having me. I'm Jess Schneider. If you'd like to follow me, I'm on the, I got a website. You can see on the program how to spell my name. It's Jess with one S Schneider. And jessschneider.net is my website. And then I'm on Instagram, and recently got banned from Facebook because I got hacked. So I've had to start over my Facebook. So if you guys are on there, I'd love your support, and you're supporting not only me but my family as well, as I'm having a kid here in about a month. So to connect the dots, we started off with a young man. My first song was True Colors, a young man that wants to move out of his city. Then we went into Up Down. He's on that high. He's loving life. Then we kind of brought it back. He's missing his family with 1,000 miles to Texas. He's got turmoil back home. And we're going to end it with That's the Way That the World Goes Round, a cover by John Prine. Because there are ups and downs in life, and we got to get through 'em.
I know a guy that's got a lot to lose. He's a pretty nice fellow, kinda confused. He's got muscles in his head that's never been used. Thinks he owns half of this town. Starts drinking ever, gets a big red nose, and beats his old lady with a rubber hose. Then he takes her out to dinner, buys her new clothes. That's the way that the world goes round. That's the way that the world goes round. You're up one day, the next you're down. It's a half-inch of water, you think you're gonna drown. That's the way that the world goes round. I was sitting in the bathtub, counting my doors, when the radiator broke. The water all froze. I got stuck in the ice without my clothes, naked of the eyes of a clown. I was crying ice cubes, hoping I'd croak, when the sun came through the window. The ice all broke. I stood up and laughed, thought it was a joke. That's the way that the world goes round. That's the way that the world goes round. You're up one day, the next you're down. It's a half-inch of water, you think you're gonna drown. That's the way that the world goes round. That's the way that the world goes round. You're up one day, the next you're down. It's a half-inch of water, you think you're gonna drown. That's the way that the world goes round. That's the way that the world goes round. That's the way that the world goes down.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you to Jess, Richard, and Adam for being here today. Thank you for all of y'all for attending, and those of us who are joining us online. Thank you to our fantastic volunteers who get here and set up, and they're the ones who run the show, y'all. All right, so we will see y'all next week, and you can join the conversation with us after this at Thean Ann Sandwiches, 2611 San Jacinto. I have been told to warn y'all that there are jalapenos in the sandwiches, so if you do not like spicy, take those out. Yeah, or just request that they take them off. All right, have a great week, y'all.